Hi, I'm Bethany Warren, and you are joining me to listen to the podcast of our Millwall fan show with the No One Likes Us talking team and hosted by Eamonn Barclay, which is available every Friday at 8 p.m.
It's Friday night, and yes, it's our Millwall fan show, and tonight we have the No One Likes Us talking team of Patricia Maslin, Ted Robinson and George the Legend Lampey, and that doesn't mean he's got a lurcher and goes out chasing rabbits.
Not everybody likes them, but they don't care.
Well, hello, Pat. It's nice to have you back again. How's things going? You back at work as yet?
No, I'm still writing my life story.
Oh, that's always a bonus, but I thought that would be a bit too short.
Oh, no, you wouldn't believe it.
Oh, I'm waiting for it to come out then. How about you, George?
We would believe it, wouldn't we, Ted? Hey?
How about you, George? You still taking the field for a walk?
Yes, I'm still walking round the fields, lonely as a cloud. Yes, I am indeed.
How many mini cabbage patches?
What is she laughing at? I'd like to know what she's laughing at in the background.
Well, she's obviously enjoying whatever's going on. But never mind. And you, Ted? How are you, Ted?
I reckon Pat's book will be Confessions of a Delivery Man.
Or the man from DHL.
The man from DHL, yeah. No, sitting indoors, Eamonn, waiting for this podcast to start, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's taken a bit of time to get here, hasn't it?
But it has, yeah.
But we'll make it happen now, for sure. Anyway, first up, we must consider the impact of all those decisions made by the EFL, I suppose, along with the Premiership, with regard to the rest of the season. George, you've usually been in Pat's camp on this matter. Is there any optimism in how things are evolving from what you've heard this week?
Yeah, I mean, today's been fairly important, and as you say, I do tend to be. I don't know about being in her camp because that could get a little bit dodgy. But no, I tend to agree with Pat on this sort of area. And
it's always best.
Today's been quite a step forward, I think, for the Football League. I mean, the second division look like they want to actually curtail their season. The Football League themselves, I think, I don't know what they're doing at the moment. They seem to have a plan, but whether it's going to be longer than they anticipate, I don't know. It's a difficult one. There are so many boxes to tick as far as this is concerned. And if I'm really honest, I've got to say, I think this is all self-interest as far as football clubs are concerned. I really do. And I'm very disappointed with a lot of football clubs.
You are a bit more optimistic than you were.
No.
Yeah, I think that's right, Eamonn. I am a little bit more optimistic, but I still think, the self-interest is the overriding factor here for a lot of football clubs.
OK, mate. Lovely. Ted, you've clearly seen the challenges to the season being within the domain of the medical advice and government. Do you think the Premiership and the EFL have provided the leadership to meet the possible mid-June restarts?
Well, I think, first of all, George should get out of Pat's camp because that can't be healthy to start with. No, look, I mean, listen, we all know that it's been a real difficult time for everybody, and when we talk about leadership and how it goes, unfortunately with football at the moment, it can't really make a lot of decisions for itself because it's governed a lot by the government. The government have given them licence to really go ahead and make their own decisions, I believe. But they've got to fall in line with what is the health and safety side of it, i.e. the tests that are evidently trying to come in. It's difficult with the training. They've still got to do social distancing, which seems farcical when you think about talking about football matches and training that. But at the end of the day, they've got to have something to work towards, and there's little green lights that are going on along the way that may all of a sudden be turned to red lights for whatever, the main reason if this virus comes back and starts spreading itself again, But it can be done. The Germans are doing it. They're starting their league programme again this weekend, I believe. Yeah. So, if the Germans can do it, there ain't no reason why we can't do it. It's just that everybody's going to have an opinion on it, and everybody's going to say they should do this, they should do that. And unfortunately, throughout all of this, the leadership is a little bit weak, and there's nothing hard and fast, and I think people are like that because they don't want to get it wrong. And none of us want it to be wrong in that respect, but we'd all like to see, well, I would, I may be one of my own here, but I'd like to see football back in some form or the other. But obviously it must be when everything is safe. That is the number one thing, and everybody's happy to do it.
Yeah, that comes across. And what with the news that certain parts of England, being around Merseyside and Yorkshire and up into the northeast,
but they're not very good at football up there anyway.
No,
so
terrible teams. But they've got higher levels of that figure that starts to worry.
That's what I'm saying. See, if that figure goes up, regardless of what we're talking about football-wise tonight, if that is it the R figure they're talking about goes above 1 and whatever, we'll be back where we was a month ago. You know, and so there won't even be any thought of playing football matches or anything like that. So everything outside of football has to be right before football can go ahead as well. You know, or it's although football's been given its head to go and get these games and restart hopefully in mid-June, it is going to be governed by things like all of us that are happening outside of its jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in here, please, guys? Because I mean, for the football to take place, surely the 2 metre distancing will have to be altered, and because you can't have that for the rest of the country and have footballers all running around kicking each other.
George, the theory behind it will be they're all being going to be COVID tested before football starts, so hopefully they should all be clear, you know, and if they can prove that they're all clear, none of them have got the virus as such, then surely the social distancing doesn't apply to them. That's the theory behind it, I would imagine, is that they are saying that every player is clear to play football in a normal fashion. I mean, that's what I believe that you know the testing will be for.
Yeah, it'll have to be something around about those things. I mean, Karen Brady talks about disinfecting the grass and everything else. So we'll
we better not talk about Karen Brady, eh?
No,
oh dear.
There you go.
The point is,
I'm gonna move on to you now. Actually, Pat, I know you've held and expressed some extremely strong views on this subject matter.
Me?
So, has anything this week changed your view about how the season should conclude?
I don't think it's changed anyone's views. I mean, what have we got? We've got nothing. I mean, Ted's question, that leadership thing, there's no clarity, there's no governance. You don't need strong decision making. OK, they don't know when they can start, but why not set out 3 or 4 different plans? If we can start here, this is what we'll do. If we can start on that date, this is what we can do. I mean, these teams, they're part of the community. They're important, and no one knows what they're doing. No players have been polled to ask if they want to play. Why not send out a questionnaire to all the players involved, make it anonymous? Do you actually want to play? Because you'll be going home to your family, your young kids, your elderly parents afterwards. I mean, it's so up in the air.
But this is where I disagree with you a little bit, Pat, because people are being asked to go back to work in other jobs where they're not being asked, do you want to go back to work, if you know what I mean?
Do you go and side tackle your partner by the lift? No. Do you roll around on the floor with him? No.
Hold on. In lift game, we work in pairs, so it's very difficult.
Yeah, but you're not in that type of physical contact, are you?
But why? But then again,
forward goes up with a forward.
But I can put you in a picture now of people that have to do things just like that, and they've been doing it day in, day out, but they haven't been given the safeguards that they should have from the beginning, and that starts with.
Yeah, but that's no excuse.
No, hold up. No, that's people in the NHS, the police, the fire, and the ambulance.
There's still no excuse to say footballers can do without it.
No, and
because 2 wrongs don't make a right. Does
no,
it?
but there is some of the technology now that's available to make those decisions much more effective, so that they know that people are clear of the virus, so that they can treat in the environment, so they can do those things.
The thing I was saying, Eamonn, was just to reiterate again, they are going to be tested, these footballers.
Yeah.
They have got more, plus from the word go in this virus, people were always saying you would be better off to be out in the open, in a big open field than you are to be in an enclosed area. That's where it's going to be spread. Listen, I know it's a contact sport, football and whatever that, but I'm all for football coming back. But of course, these things should be in place where they should be made sure that they haven't got the virus. They are free to go and play the game before it starts. That's what I'm saying.
But we're relying on all those people to be in self-isolation for a fortnight before. Now, we just spoke about it earlier. That German coach went out to the hotel, he went out to the supermarket to buy toothpaste. He's come back. Yeah, he's been banned from the ground now, but that's what happens. People do it. You cannot guarantee that one of them won't break that rule.
No, but the point being, Pat, is I think out of all the working environments that there are out there, one of the safest will be on the football pitch.
Yeah.
Because they are being given access to a lot more than the average working man is going to get to go back to work. They will be looked at. They've got medical people there.
In the changing room. I mean, it's nothing to do with the football pitch, is it?
Doesn't this all come back to what Pat said many weeks ago?
I knew you was in her camp, see?
I am.
Yeah.
You only need one guy in one team to start getting it and you're in trouble. Now, I'm listening to Ted's argument and it sounds fine, Ted. And I can see that that's a good plan, but...
Does that fence hurt there, George?
But I can see the difficulty of that, and I can see that raising its head at some stage. I mean, already, and I know we haven't started this league process, but I think Brighton have already got 3 players quarantined.
Yeah, but George, my point is saying before everything starts, at football grounds, there are medical people there from the word go. These guys will be following all the guidelines that they have to follow to make sure that the players that are clear before they even go anywhere. Not everybody that goes to work has that. Every day they go into work, someone will be checking their temperature, will be doing this, that and the other.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, it's as safe as an environment as you're going to get, I think, in a working case on a football field. Whereas everyday workers won't have so much as they will have. And all I'm saying is, of course, none of us want to see any footballers to be in any danger going out there, just because they're going to play their job with a game of football. But they will have a lot in place that will try to make sure that they're safe before they do that, a lot more than a lot of other people are getting. I just think we sometimes make footballers a bit more precious than they should actually be.
Well, it's not about being precious, it's their families and children.
Of course it is, Pat. But
that's the families and children of everyone.
So am mine when I go back to work.
We're talking about football here, Eamonn. We're not talking about them wonderful people in the NHS or anyone else working. We're talking about footballers here, and we're talking about their children, their elderly parents.
But those football clubs are going to go out of their way to make sure that the medical arrangements that surround those players and the support staff that work with them is going to be absolutely top notch. They're going to be in a better
position. All to sign to say that if they come down with it, the football club aren't responsible.
Well, if they do that, then they do that.
That
won't hold water, unfortunately, under health and safety legislation.
I don't see your argument, though, Pat. Footballers are no different to anybody else that's out there working at this moment in time. We all go out there. We all get put in. The people that go out and get on the tubes to go to work at the moment, they're all closer than most footballers get on. Well, some of our team anyway. They're marked closer than some of our defenders marked players at times. You're crammed into a place like that.
You've got sweat. You've got body fluids you're mixing with. You don't do that with your partner in work, do you?
No. I mean, you've only got to see a footballer head a ball after about 15 minutes and a huge, great man whose sweat comes off his head, don't it?
Yeah,
I don't want the season to go ahead. I just think life's more important than football.
Well, I think there's more questions than answers, and we ain't got enough time to do that on tonight's show. We'll take a break there and be back with our new review. Was he a class striker?
Bethany Warren here again. Thank you for listening to our show. Don't forget, Love Sport Radio is now mothballed pending change in current pandemic conditions. Love Sport are still running previous programmes, and you can hear some programmes on demand online. You can still listen to repeat programmes both online and on DAB. Hopefully we'll be back on the air with them quickly when conditions improve. In the meantime, watch out for our podcast adverts on Facebook and Twitter. Our podcast show links are available on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, Spreaker, iTunes, SoundCloud and Pinterest.
Right, we're back and we've got Patricia Maslin, George Lampey and Ted Robinson from the No One Likes Us Talking team. It's our second week to review the Millwall top 20 goal scorers of this century as produced by Bringing Stats Alive Football, who you can find on Facebook and who produce fantastic visualisations of statistics. Second up is the first of 216 goals scored, a striker for the Lions, and he sits in joint 18th position, Barry Hayles. George, Barry Hayles, where does he sit in your storyline?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that the visual effects of that were incredible, but and I'm sure Pat would like to be when it goes right to the very top because of her favourite. But Barry Hayles, he came to us when he was a little bit older. He was past his best, to be honest, Barry. He had been a quality striker. I think he came to us when he was about 32. As you said, he got 16 goals, which wasn't a bad ratio.
No.
And if I'm right, and one of the guys might be able to tell me it, in his very first game for us, sorry, I didn't think he played with me personally.
He might have done.
In the first game for us, I think he broke a rib. Do you remember that, Ted?
I think you're right, George. Yeah.
I think
because he was no spring chicken. He was right. Yeah, no, he was no spring chicken. He was right there, and I think he suffered an injury. I think you're right. It was a rib in the first game, which put him out for a while.
For a ball that he had no right to get anywhere near, and I think he was just trying so hard.
Oh, he was desperate.
And he just damaged the rib. But he was a pretty good player for us indeed, actually, I thought. And he never let us down. But as I say, he came to us past his best, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to the man. He was a good guy.
OK, thanks for that, George. How about you, Patricia? What's your memories of Barry?
Well, I assume we're judging these players on their time at Millwall alone.
Yeah, that's it.
George was talking about his early career there.
Sorry, is that a little dig at me there? Is she having a dig at me, Eamonn?
Yes.
Right. Well, he only had 2 years with us. Bought by Wisey to replace Harris, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Big shoes to fill, and he didn't fill them, I'm afraid. He was about 32 when he came. I don't think it was good. Well, I don't think he paid much for him, but it wasn't a good deal by Wisey. Obviously remembered for his goal at Upton Park.
Absolutely.
I remember getting a hat-trick at Derby.
Well, that's no mean feat.
No, but other than that, he's not a standout player for the club. But I will say, at 47 now, he's still registered to play.
He does. He does. He still gets the ball out and kicks it around. Ted, what's your thoughts?
Well, I disagree with Pat. I thought he was quite good for us, to be quite honest. I'll put him in the category of our old legends, in a sense. Not necessarily legends, but Steve Claridge, Paul Moody, all sort of guys that you would say maybe were past their best when they come to us. But I thought he put in a real good time with us. He scored some good goals. He scored a lot of goals, in a sense, as a striker for us. The hat-trick at Derby, I remember particularly well, because I was fortunate enough because my brother-in-law had a connection with someone in Derby, and we was actually up in the them places that you and George go quite a lot, Eamonn, the executive part of it, or whatever it was. But I was up there.
No, I don't go where George goes. George goes to the other side of the ground where they have food delivered and free drink and everything else.
Can we get on with the show, you lot, please?
Exactly. I was there and on hospitality, shall we say, at Derby.
So was I that day.
Well, very nice it was too, Eamonn.
Yeah.
But I must admit, he scored a wonderful hat-trick. Yeah, and I was one of them games where it's Millwall away, and I was thinking to myself at the start of the day, I don't really fancy us here. Derby are pretty decent and whatever. And Barry Hayles was exceptional on the day. And then again, you know, I hear what Pat says, but anybody that scores any sort of goal against West Ham to me is has played well for us. You know, so
it was a very good goal.
It was a good goal. And I must admit, I find myself agreeing with both George and Pat. I know Pat said you can't look at him, you're only looking at the Millwall time, but Barry Hayles was a good footballer all the way through his career. I'd loved it to have had him a little bit earlier in his lifetime, but as Pat quite rightly said, he's still playing now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think he did come to us trying to fill massive shoes in Neil Harris, so that was always impossible. But I wouldn't take anything away from Barry Hayles. I thought in actual fact, I think if he'd been with us longer on an earlier time, it'd have been a typical, very good Millwall player.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Anyhow, it's that time now, and not like the old legend, thank you and all of those sort of things. Your vote is on a goal hanger, a good goal scorer, or a class goal scorer. So, George, over to you.
Well, I think, seeing as we're talking about us, I would say he was a good goal scorer for us. 50 games, 16 goals, I'd say that's pretty good going. I think if you was to ask the people of Fulham, they would say he was a class goal scorer. But as I say, because of our time with us, yeah.
I'll cut that bit with Fulham out later. But yeah, okay. Right, Pat, how about you?
See, I don't like the names you've given the classes there. It doesn't fit into any for me.
Okay, good.
We're talking about 2 years at Millwall.
Yeah.
How can you say a forward who scored 16 goals in 2 seasons is a good goal scorer? Right.
So you're not you cannot not to vote.
But you can't call him a goal hanger either.
No,
can you?
but you cannot not to vote.
Well, I'll have to put him as a good goal scorer just for the.
No, but you said that is inappropriate.
What? I'm supposed to make up my own section?
No, you just don't. Have you never been in a position where you've chose not to vote?
Yeah, I've ripped up the voting card and thrown it away.
Well, you don't have to do that. You just say, no, I'm not voting. That's it.
Oh, okay, I won't vote.
Thank you. How about you, Ted?
Well, I think Patricia was going to say the way to vote for it. I mean, I'm with George, I'm with Pat, because I think Pat at the end there said he was a good goal scorer. If I've got to vote, he was a good goal scorer because he scored against West Ham.
Yeah, and she's just too controversial.
Any Millwall player that scores against West Ham is a great goal scorer in my opinion. But no, I think George has got it right. He was a good goal scorer, no doubt about it.
Okay, so Barry Hayles, a good goal scorer. It's now time for this week's guest on the show, whom I spoke to earlier. Over the past couple of weeks, we've covered a period of time that our listeners have asked to hear about. The 08-09 playoff final, the 09-10 playoff final, and the return to the championship in 2010-11. We've had Alan Dunn and Tam McAnder-Weary speaking about their involvement during that period of time. Tonight we have another member of the Millwall side from that era. He joined us from Ipswich in 2007 as a defender. He played in a number of positions until he left us for Brentford in 2012. Sadly, an injury whilst at Brentford halted his career. His only winning Wembley final was with the Lions. It is, of course, Scott Barron. Welcome, Scott. We hope you have been coping well in the lockdown period.
Just juggling a little bit with the kids at home. And
that's not too bad.
It's been good. It's the best thing about it, to be honest. Spending time with them that I haven't actually had, would normally have. But yeah, sometimes set times for phone calls and stuff can be quite tricky because they don't really abide by your laws, do they, the kids?
No, kids never do. And
no.
and I think that goes on for the whole of your life with them. But as you'll find out, you're much too young to realise that now. We're focusing on a specific period of time, but tell us first, Scott, how did you come to join us after being released by Ipswich Town in 2007?
Well, Willie Donaghy got the job at Millwall at the time, and he was assistant manager to me when I was coming through at Ipswich as a young lad. He was assistant to Joe Royal. Willie was really fond of me, to be honest. As I was a young lad, I was really fit, and he was really instrumental in giving me my debut at Ipswich. I think he maybe pushed Joe Rule's hand at it as an 18-year-old lad. Yeah, he really liked me, and then as Joe Rule got sacked or left towards the end of that summer, it was evident that he was leaving. The summer before, and Jim Magilton got the job, who was an ex-teammate of mine.
Right.
He was a bit of a mentor to me, to be honest, and I played maybe about 75% of the last half of the season, and then he got the job, and I was under the impression I'd play that following year, and it didn't work out that way. Manager, ex-teammate turning manager was quite difficult, I think, for me to. I don't know, the transition for him going into it for me, I found it quite difficult, and I ended up not playing for him. A couple of injuries, and just really just didn't fancy me, so he let me go the following summer, and Willie was straight on the phone asking my availability. I would have come to London, which would have been a bit of a big step for me at the time, but I'll be brutally honest with you, I didn't have a lot of options either. So he was I didn't. He was really keen, and obviously sold the club. I knew about Millwall anyway, but I've always been a bit of a football nerd, so I knew a lot about the club anyway. But he sold it, told him of his aspirations, and I really like Willie. He was a forward thinker, ahead of his time. A lot of the things that footballers do now, he was introducing 10, 12, 15 years ago. So I really like Willie, and he was the main reason I signed, to be honest.
Thanks to Willie Donachie, you joined the Lions. On the 24th of May 2009, you walked out onto the turf of Wembley for our playoff final against Scunthorpe as a substitute. A record crowd for any team, not just Millwall, greeted you. What are your memories of that day?
Yeah, it was a special day. I mean, it was a special week leading up to it. It was the first time, certainly, I'd been to Wembley, apart from, I think I might have gone to a game when I was a young lad, but we went there in the week building up just to familiarise with the surroundings, etc. And the day itself, as much as you prepare for it, you see the scale of Wembley, the size of it, but when it's full of 60,000 fans, majority Millwall, it was really special. It was the first time I really realised, I think, how many supporters Millwall had, because you have, there's 15,000 go to games down the Den, but there always seems to be a Millwall fan, and then they really showed out on that day, and it was a hot day. I was a little bit disappointed not to be playing, but I hadn't played a lot that season anyway. I was just sort of starting to win round Kenny Jackett at that point. He was just trusting me a little bit more, a few games here and there. So I wasn't expecting to play, but obviously a bit disappointed maybe I didn't get on during the game, but we were chasing it towards the end, so he wasn't going to bring me on. I remember Gaz Alex's goal. I think everyone remembers that. That will live long in the memory for all Millwall fans. Yeah, I mean, it was tremendous, and I thought we'd go on and win it then. Looking back now, I think they had a good team. Scunthorpe, a lot of players who went on to better things. Gary Hooper was a striker, scored a lot of goals, didn't he, and went on, and Grant McCann, Paul Hayles, who I later played with at Brentford. So yeah, they were a good side. We didn't underestimate them, but sometimes you don't know how good these teams are until you see what their careers happen, what they go on to later on, and much like ourselves the following year. But our team was decent. I thought we'd had enough to win. Yeah, the day overall was good, but yeah, unless you win at Wembley, I think the overriding thought and emotion is disappointment, really.
Yeah, it all bears down on the stomach rather than up in the head, that's for sure. What was the outlook then, returning to League One after the disappointment of losing that final?
I think we knew we'd probably lose one or two players, maybe through age or moving on. I think Zach Whitbread, he was my housemate at the time, and I was aware Zach was leaving at that point. I think he really shone that season and was one of our better players. Now, he wasn't a particularly popular member at Millwall, strangely, but he was too good for League One. If we didn't go up, I think he'd leave. So we knew Adam Boulder as well, great guy, played centre mid. Maybe age was catching up with him, and he might be coming towards the end. And Gaz Alex and Neil Harris were fantastic, aging slightly though. So maybe we might add a bit more pace in the team. To be honest, I think that's what we needed. But I think we really thought next season we'd go up. Was the consensus, on the bus and in the following weeks. We had a good night out after that as well, all the lads together. And I thought we'd keep the nucleus of the side. Maybe with one or two additions, I really felt we'd go up the following season, which was the case.
Yeah, well, that wasn't a bad assumption, really, given the circumstances that arose out of that following season.
So close, we were so close, and it was a 50-50 game. And like I say, we knew we might lose one or two, but I think we got the impression we weren't going to lose many. So the nucleus of the side was was certainly still going to be there.
Yeah.
So I think we were all relatively confident.
Yeah. So confidence reigned. You ended up getting to Wembley once again in the following season. And having been placed on the left wing, both the playoff semi-final legs, you turned out as a right back for the final against Swindon. And I remember our Ted Robinson said he couldn't believe it. He said, what's going on here? We were doing hero or legend a couple of weeks back, and you were the focus of that. And he said, just for what he did in that game there, he's a legend for me. So there you go, Scott. You're Ted Robinson's legend. But were you surprised turning up out at right back?
Well, firstly, I think that phrase gets thrown around too much. There's legends at Millwall, and you've spoke to them, the likes of Dunny and Neil Harris, and people who have played hundreds and hundreds of games. You know, they're legends of the football club in my era. I think I no doubt did a good job. I'm very proud of it. And when called upon, I had a really good era for a good couple of seasons at Millwall, and turned the tide really of what looked like maybe wasn't going to happen. But certainly, you know, maybe on that day, I performed well over the playoffs. I performed very, very well. I was very proud of it. But yeah, legend's a phrase or a word which shouldn't be banded in my direction. Let's save them for them Robinsons and Dunnies and Neil Harrises and stuff and Morrows. But do you know what my recollection of that following season was? I got in the side after Christmas as a left back. I was an attacking fullback. I wasn't a very typical Millwall left back. I was very aware of that. I was acutely aware of that from when I first signed. But I think football was changing a little bit, and the modern day football now, I was probably born 10 years too early, because I think now I could have been even more of a success the way that fullbacks play. So it took me a while to get in over the likes of Framo and Tony Craig, who were slightly different fullbacks. But the back end that season, I got in as a left back, and then the playoff finals. Semi-final, I got asked to do a job left mid away from home at Huddersfield, and I performed really well. Got man of the match. Should have had a couple of penalties, and I think Kenny thought, well, I'm going to keep you there for the second leg. We thought we knew we'd win the second leg. I was really confident. We were the better team up at Huddersfield. We had a good team, and we knew we'd win that second leg. So I don't think he changed the team at all. Maybe one switch, I can't remember. But we were very confident and, performed well again, left midfield. And I was going into the final fully expecting to play left midfield. But I think it was Dunny. Was it Dunny who got injured?
I think he was out of injury, yeah.
Yeah, I think Dunny might have picked up an injury in the semi-final, or Jack Smith. Both of them just happened to be out. And then Kenny just pulled me the day before the final and said, by the way, lined up all week as a left midfielder, fully prepared to play left mid. Play right back tomorrow, and I half sniggered. I thought he was having a laugh. Never played right back before in my life. Right foot was for standing on. And then the day of the game, I think Jack Smith and Dunny had both failed fitness tests, and he said, you're playing right back today. So I think that opened the door. I think it was Neil Harris actually who came in the side, and Sean Batt went right mid. It was a bit of rejigs. Schofield went left mid, and I ended up playing right back. And I think that game really cemented my sort of place, more importantly with Kenny Jackett and the trust going forward, that he thought, well, this lad will do a job and I can put him anywhere, and maybe got the respect of the teammates as well, because there were a lot of raised eyebrows. I'm sure there was probably people think, can he do it, can he perform? Danny Ward was left wing against us in that game and was one of their better players, and my job was just to keep him quiet, which I managed to do and the whole team managed to do really. We kept him quiet all day, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't there was one hint when that man came through and completely threw it, and he went on.
Do you know what? The game there, Eamonn, though, that game, I don't know how everyone else felt. I didn't feel nervous. Like I felt, as a team, we knew we were going to win that game. We'd beaten Swindon in the lead-up before. Yeah, and we won it quite comfortably. Now, they had a good side, some good players who I just mentioned previously who went on to do good things. Charlie Austin, he missed that chance, has gone and had an unbelievable career. I think the whole squad really, really knew we'd win that game. In the summer, we'd added Liam Trotter and Steve Morrison, who, for me, were our two best players that season and the following season, the Championship. We did have some big players who had been around and Millwall legends, but without Trotter and Morrow were really the reason I think it turned us in from a good team to a very, very good team.
I didn't feel that way. I thought that there was more to us, principally because we had beaten Swindon just before going into the playoffs. The game was won. He's done a great job. Old Robbo got his goal and everyone just went mad. It was a wonderful feeling. So on the return to the second flight, you and Tony Craig fought for that left back spot, it seems to be, on more than one occasion. Occasionally you appeared elsewhere. You became that utility player. Was it a credible ninth place for Millwall to finish on their return to the Championship? Or could they have done better, do you think?
Well, yeah, from the back end of the season where we went up, I'd really sort of cemented myself in the side, whether that be left mid or left back, and then into the Championship. Yeah, I was the first choice left back for that season. Tony played centre back sometimes, and occasionally away from home he'd play left back, and I'd play left midfield.
Yeah.
I remember I went to Palace and played right back, and they asked me to do a job on Zaha again.
Yeah.
I think I might have played about 50 or 60 games on the spin without injury, and I was really a favourite of Kenny's at that time. Nothing spectacular, but just did a job really. Took on instruction, and I think the team adapted just really well. Like, we had Championship players, like I say, you don't realise it at the time, but until you get there, we had real good quality. We had to Bristol City on the first day, beat them 3-0 away from home.
Yeah.
And I think that really gave everyone belief that we belong there. And like I say, we had players who went on to do a lot better things, Morrison and Trotto. And we had a Kev Lisby that summer who I thought was fantastic player. Didn't set it alight, but was really good.
There was Jason Punchin as well, wasn't there, who scored those 3 goals at home against Palace.
Punch, yeah, legend, scoring a hat-trick against the enemy and going on to play for him. We utilised the loan system fantastically well in that year and the year after, with the likes of Andros Townsend, Harry Kane, which we all know about.
Yeah.
There was many, but my relationship with Schofield on the left was really good, and we got on really well off the pitch and really had a dynamic down the left-hand side, which was really good. But in terms of finishing ninth, I think if you'd have offered at the start of the season, would have bit your hand off. There was a point with about 5 or 6 games to go. We had a chance to really make the playoffs, and we had Swansea at home, and I was playing left back. And I remember it was probably my worst performance for Millwall. I really got taught a lesson by Nathan Dyer and Angel Rangel down the right-hand side that day. We lost 2-0. And again, coming back to what I've said a couple of times, you don't realise how good that team was, though. That team had Joe Allen and Leon Britton, Ashley Williams, Rangel, Nathan Dyer, Routledge. I think Barini played. All players who would go on to be regular Premier League players.
Yes.
And we got taught a lesson as a team. Probably just drummed home that we weren't quite good enough to make the playoffs. So I think ninth was probably about a fair result. Tinged with a little bit of disappointment, but we weren't ready and we weren't good enough to go up at that point. So it was probably fair. I think overall we would have bit your hand off at the start of the season without a shadow of a doubt.
I would have. It was a wonderful period, actually, a wonderful 3 years. Everything was clicking and doing well. And it's interesting that so many of the listeners have asked us to try and get hold of the players from that side and to get their reflections on it.
A great set of lads, like Tony Craig you talk about there. I was in competition with Tony. I think we were different players, but we got on so well off the pitch. We knew we had different attributes, and we went to Brentford together as well in the same summer. And although there was competition for places, I think the camaraderie was really good. We had a mixture of old senior pros who were great lads, and Gary Alex and Neil Harris and Robbo and Fordy, and then we had some younger lads sprinkled in of Trots, and we had Jimmy Abdu, who's a fantastic lad and fantastic player, and Legs and Scully, Hacks. I could name them all. We had a real good mix. It wasn't just old senior pros. It wasn't just young lads. It was a real good team dynamic who all got on, and even though we were very different in ages and backgrounds, etc. And competition was quite fierce, but always respectful. Yeah, it's definitely the highlight of my career, that era and period of lads. I really enjoyed it.
No, it was a wonderful time. Tell us, Scott, what are you up to now?
Well, I own a management company now, which basically I look after footballers off the pitch. I try and help them with their media work and a bit of a mentoring service as well. Just passing my experience and stuff to these lads and where I can help. Don't get involved with contracts and stuff. That's not really my forte, but there's lots of bits that players in the game, miss out on in terms of gaining margins and other players, if it's media or stats work, fitness work, etc. like that. So it's more of a management service focusing on mentoring and guidance, really. But I enjoy it. I'm still involved in football. Having said that, I've been pulling my hair out the last few weeks, obviously, but as anyone who's involved in football, the fans aren't the only ones who miss it, that's for sure.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear from you and your thoughts. Do you still get down the den occasionally?
Yeah, I mean, my son's a Millwall fan now. He came home trying to tell me he was a Tottenham fan because of Harry Kane. I had to tell him I played with Harry Kane. He didn't believe me. Trying to explain that to him I still don't think he believes me now. But yeah, no, we've been down. My brother-in-law is a big Millwall fan, and my nephew go down every single week. So I go down every now and again when I can, catch the games. Yeah, I'm a Millwall fan. Once you go and play for that club, it's different to any other club. It sort of grabs you. That was my most successful period, and it's one of my local clubs as well. So I'm trying to influence my son, like I say, if he can, get through it's either him or Millwall or a foreign club. I'm not going to have him supporting an English side if it's not Millwall, I don't think.
Spot on. It's really wonderful to talk to you, Scott. You've really brought a bit more of that picture of those 3 seasons to the listeners. We'll speak to you again, I'm sure, along the way.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Brilliant, Eamonn. Thanks a lot.
Breathe. Come back. Stop. Great to hear from Scott, Lions fan and former player. And good to hear he has been busy entertaining the kids locally during the lockdown. Unlike his colleague, Tam McCandawiri, who's doing it all out in Southern California. Unlucky Scott. Ted, Scott was clearly delighted he was remembered for his performance at right back in the winning playoff final by you. He was certainly Kenny Jackett's utility player for that and the following season. What is at the forefront of your memories about him?
Well, I said on the other show, Eamonn, about the playoff final.
Yeah.
But I think going on from that, I said enough there. I mean, he was terrific on a day in a position that he wasn't familiar with.
Yeah.
But I think he proved to himself, like he said in his interview to Kenny, that he was reliable. And that's what I would say about Scott Barron. Scott Barron was a footballing left back, really.
Yeah.
And, we're not really... I mean, most of our left backs, if you look at Murray Wallace at the moment, Tony Craig before him, are solid, don't give anything away types, whereas Scott was a bit of a ball player. But what he did do was he gained Kenny Jackett's trust. Now, for anybody to gain Kenny Jackett's trust in the fact that you could play him in any position, these sort of guys are what I'll call the unsung heroes. If you look at players like that I'm talking about, you can talk about the James Milners of this world who can play in any position. They're 7 out of 8 every game they give you. I wouldn't say Scotty Barron was quite in that bracket of like a James Milner, but he's that type of player. And they are a manager's dream. Someone that you think, when you've got a problem, who can I go to? There's your man, Scotty Barron. And that's what I remember with Scotty. He spent a lot of time, obviously, at left back. That's his better position, I think. But I do think he was a little bit like Shane Ferguson. He was good at left back, he was good at left wing, but never quite good enough to be the number one, if that makes sense,
No, he certainly said that he thought he was ahead of his time because he was more of a wing-back type player. And in those 2 games against Huddersfield, well, he played out of his socks there.
Yeah, I think it backfires on people, doesn't it, Ted, really? If they have to play in several positions, it ends up...
It does, Jules, but they become a manager's dream because you've always got a go-to man. You can have your best 11 players out there, or best team out there, you think, and this guy could be sitting on the bench, and then the next week one of them's injured. This guy can come in and do the job for you. He might, he might be limited certainly in certain ways, but he's always going to give you that performance that will enhance the team, and they become team players. I know individually it doesn't help them because obviously we all have individual goals in life as a footballer, and that you want to be in the starting lineup every week. But it also, with them sort of strings to your bow that you can play in different positions, it makes you a valued member of a squad. Another player like that was Phil Neville. If you remember, Phil Neville used to play left back, right back, midfield. These guys are invaluable to squads, and Scotty Barron sort of turned himself into that for Kenny Jackett to a certain extent.
He did. George, interesting that Scott shared with Zach Whitbread. Well, I don't know if that's the interesting bit. But he could see that if we weren't going to go up, he would move on, old Zach, and mentioned he was not favoured by the Den faithful. Could you put your finger on why Zach was not favoured by the Den faithful?
Well, can I just firstly say how nice it was to hear Scott? I think he's a lovely man, and as Ted was saying, I think he played a great part for us in our success at the time. Zach was he stood out because of his blonde hair, obviously, wherever he was. But I think Zach was a little bit more of a cultured centre-half, wasn't he? Rather than, if you take Nethercott or Dyche, they're hard, tough centre-halves that we tend to like down the Den. And he wasn't really like that too much. He was more cultured. And maybe that's why he wasn't really taken to heart like, some of the other guys, really. And, and of course, then he went on to Norwich, which he was really unfortunate with injuries all through his career. I think maybe his longest stint of playing was when he was in our team.
Yeah, probably his longest run, I think. Yeah.
But he was a good player, and he deserved to have his chance and to carry on. I think. Yeah.
He was an outstanding player this time 11 years ago when we played at Ellen Road in the second semi-final.
Out of this world.
Zach was outstanding on the night.
Yeah.
As was the team, really, but we was always going to be under pressure that night, and the defence in particular stood up really well to it, and Zach was a major part in that.
Yeah.
Plus, he started the move that got Jimmy's goal.
Yeah. Amazing, really, amazing.
Here's a question for you.
Go on.
Put the ball back across the goal for Jimmy Abdu to score.
Martin?
No, Martin made the cross to the far post back, and it got knocked back.
Did it come from the left or the right, Ted? Right, didn't it?
Come from the
Martin
right,
crossed from the left.
From the left,
to the far post. It got knocked back across the goal from the far post, and Jimmy Abdu scored. Another Millwall favourite.
Owen Harris.
No. Shall I put you out of misery?
Yeah, come on.
It was Lewis Graben.
Oh, yeah, of course, old Louis. Yeah. Louis White.
What is he doing now?
So, as much as we all hated him since he left us, I forgive him now because I realise it was him that knocked that back to Jimmy Abdu.
Yeah, there you go.
Ted's made him a legend straight away.
Without a doubt. Another legend.
Another one to talk about. Yeah. Pat, Scott highlighted that Liam Trotter and Steve Morrison made a big difference to the side. What were each's attributes from your perspective? Now, I know you've got views about Steve Morrison, but give a balanced view on the two of them.
I like Trotter. He had flashes of quality about him. He seemed full of confidence, really commanding midfielder, physically imposing. I think he was about 6'2", wasn't he?
Yeah, he's shorter than me.
Yeah, great positional awareness, a good all-rounder, knack for goals. The trouble is, he did go missing some games to me. He didn't always put a shift in.
Yeah.
And I know he had a lot of injuries before he left us, didn't he?
He did.
And I think he fell out with Jacket as well.
Could have been the case. But at that time, I think
he went on to better things, though, didn't he? Well, he went on to the Premiership. I'm not sure that worked out that well.
No.
Yeah.
He was a quality player, quality passer. Used to put in some beautiful passes, Trotter.
He had a presence. He had a presence in midfield. Like Pat said, he was physically imposing. I mean, the problem was with Liam Trotter. It's a little bit funny enough, as Pat's idol Steve Morrison sometimes got accused. They got a lazy sort of style about them. If you can call it that. I never used to think that, but sometimes people think that they're not working hard because they look a bit sort of laid back or don't quite look like they're putting 100% in. It appears on the surface.
They're not in a Tomo mould, are they? That just rushes
whereas they are.
everything.
Not terriers.
Whereas they are. And Liam Trotter, Pat was right. He did go missing sometimes. I think he was a victim of his own standard. When he was good, he was very good. Liam Trotter. If he didn't reach that sort of thing, it showed because he was in the middle of the park. He wasn't like Jimmy Abdu, who went running around for 90 minutes every game. Again, a 7 out of 10 player. You knew what Jimmy Abdu could do, and you could see it. With Liam Trotter, when he was on his game, as Joel said, he knew how to put a ball through, pass it, and he could control the midfield. But sometimes he set his standards so high that he did sometimes go a bit below that. And as Pat quite rightly said, he seemed to disappear then.
Pat, so what about old Morrow?
Rubbish.
No, don't get us started on him.
No, I wanted to focus on that period of time, not any other period of time. That period of time.
The point is, it's no good me sitting here saying what I think his attributes are, because everyone who's listening to this remembers him and knows him. You know my personal feelings on him. He was the best thing that probably ever happened to our club. Stroke of genius by Jacket to buy him. The 3 times he's been with us, he's made history with us. I mean, there's not much more you can say about the bloke, really. Footballing brain I've never seen before like that down Millwall. I just think he had so much more than his actual ability on the pitch.
Yeah, and he could give as good as he got. He would regularly go and speak to the fans in a very polite way if they spoke to him politely.
Well, exactly. I mean, what you pay your money, you think you can say what you like to players, but you can't. No. And because he gives it back, some of them don't like it.
No, it's terrible.
What I'd say about...
Go on.
What I was going to say, Pat, about Steve Morrison is the one thing that I loved about him, and George knows this, was he was an honest player. He was an honest footballer out on the pitch. He would give you all that he got. He was a focal point for any attack that we had. He was a strange player in the sense that he was neither a real centre forward or the guy that would play along a centre forward. He was somewhere in between the both, which made him a difficult player for the opposition to mark. But he was obviously a leader in the changing room. He was obviously a strong character. And what I'd say is, when he answered fans back, as you say, quite rightly, there'd be a lot of players that would shy away from doing that. But Steve Morrison was honest and open about what he thought. Yeah. And if he thought you was wrong, he would tell you was wrong. And if he's telling that to the fans, I can imagine what he was like in the changing room. Oh. And you need a player like that in there. You need
he was one of the leaders. Too.
He points out to the other players what they're not doing.
Yeah.
But I do remember his first stint with us, when things didn't go right, his head would go down. But that was youth. By the time he came back on loan that second time, he was a mature, completely different player, even better than the first time.
That's lovely. And on that point, I'm going to say we're going to take a break there, and we will be back with some of the news around the den.
Hi, Patricia Maslin here. The Millwall Community Trust needs volunteer help. Whether you're an organisation with bodies able to assist or an individual, the Trust needs you during the pandemic to support the vulnerable and the needy. If you can help make a difference, please contact Sean Daly, the Trust's Chief Executive Officer. You can contact him by phone on 07958 027060. Once again, that's 07958 027060. Or you can contact him by email, sdaly, that's SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. I'll repeat that, sdaly, spelt SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. Thanks again if you think you may be able to help or you know someone who might.
Okay, we're back again. The gang are enjoying the slight break there with a few. Hello, someone's pulled their.
I think the storm's just come along, hasn't it?
A duvet's just come over. Well, yeah, believe it or not, we have got George Lampey and Patricia Maslin, and of course the one and only Ted Robinson. Anyhow, there are genuine concerns surrounding who and what will be the size of our squad moving on to next season, and not just the first team. We asked the club about youngsters being released from the club, and they actually released a statement toward the end of last week. George, what did the club say about the leavers?
Well, they obviously announced that there was, I think, 5 young lads who were going to be released. This is part and parcel of Scott Fitzgerald's job, to be honest. It's not the most pleasant part of his job, that's for sure. But each season we have to let some of these youngsters go. We can't keep them all. And, I mean, as I say, it's a very hard job for him. But we know from experience, and we talk about Morrison here as a prime example. You know, some of these young lads, they get let go, but they can bounce back. They can go to other clubs and make their way back through the league. So hopefully that's what's going to happen to them. But it's hard, and as I say, I think this is the hardest part of Scott Fitzgerald's job, to let these youngsters go that you must get to know very closely.
Yeah, I didn't pick up any names that really hung with me when I saw that list.
It's a nigh on impossible job for Scott, because you know we have let players go like Eze, who's playing at QPR at the moment. You know, but I see that boy, and he was quite outstanding in the game that I see him playing against Charlton. But obviously Scott sees something in him then that wasn't quite maybe mature enough to say that he was going to make it. And he wasn't. He did look a little bit of a luxury player at times as well. But the bottom line is, you can make a decision now on what you see, but that's not to say that ain't going to develop in the near future. You have to go on the gut instinct as much as anything else.
You've got to go with your strongest stack of cards. That's the truth.
Exactly. How it appears at the time.
Yeah,
you know.
that's
but
all
as
you
George
can do.
said, they can reappear along the way. You know, at other clubs maybe, or maybe even back at Millwall. You know, you never know.
We never know. Pat, the Premiership sides are considering proposals to have B teams in the lower leagues, or partnering with lower league clubs to sustain them for the future, with non-first team players being made available to play for them and develop their skills. Can you see either of these options happening?
Look, the FA chairman Greg Dyke was the man who brought us Roland Rat. What does that say to you? Bloke's a muppet.
I love Roland Rat.
I'll tell you what, he must have made a fortune on Roland Rat. That says something.
Yeah.
Well, if you allow like these egotistical rich clubs to dictate the changes, then those changes are going to be only in the interests of those clubs.
Sadly.
I mean, exactly, and he must be downright naive to think that the Premier League would act in any other fashion.
Yeah, it is a worry. I mean, I just can't get to terms with it.
I mean, it's important that the better off clubs make sacrifices to aid the smaller clubs.
Yeah.
If you're not prepared to ask the clubs to make that sacrifice, why are they bullying the smaller clubs, intimidating them? I mean, instead of this Operation Restart worrying about the league, they should call it Operation Reset and do a better share of the money, introduce a wage, immobilise all the egos.
Wage caps would be good.
Pat. I don't think that works, Pat. I don't think they're there to look after us. The other, the rest of the football family, I think they're there to look after themselves.
Yeah, they got all that money coming through from the TV companies. They're not even really worried what comes through the gate these days.
Eamonn, can I just say that the B-side thing is obviously, again, it comes from the continent, you know, where a lot of them have got B-sides and whatever. My only concern about it, I don't really want B-sides in our lower divisions, and Pat's quite right. The Premier League should be doing a bit more to look after the lower leagues as it is. Now, whether that could be, one of the things that the Premier League does that I don't like is this loan business where they send them abroad. You know, they keep sending all the good young English talent that there is in academies and that. So, you know, or may not be English, but they send them abroad. Why not send them down the divisions?
Yeah, you think that.
You know, we've got Jason Malumbi this year for a season. Fingers crossed it might be longer. Who knows? But the lad has grown up as a footballer, and he's a terrific young lad and a terrific young player.
He is.
Why don't these young players in the Premier League that they stockpile come filtered down to the divisions within the English Football League? That is what I would like to see.
Yeah, be a bit more of that.
Rather than B-sides, which I think is a farce.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
OK then, that's ridiculous, but Ted isn't, so we're going to ask Ted. We have a number of first-team players out of contract when this season concludes, or the end of June, however that works out. What are your thoughts on us retaining any, and who will be likely to leave?
That's a right loaded question with the way that things are at the moment. I know I'd like to see stay. I'd like to see us sign Ryan Woods. I think he's a little bit of quality on the ball. Whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. I mean, everybody's contract is obviously a little bit up in the air with what's going on. So until they decide what they're doing with that, I know most of them are supposed to finish in the end of June or the beginning of July. I think Jeff says that it can extend on to the end of July. But until they decide what they're doing with that, whether they're saying, well, that got suspended then and we're going to extend it for them. I don't know whether they can do that, by the way. But all these things that we're going to talk about are so hypothetical that I can't really give any sort of answers. If they stick to the contracts that they've got, then obviously it becomes a bigger problem. But it always happens, as Jules said, with the culling of the young lads in the scholarships and that. That happens every year. At the end of every season, first teams get flipped around a little bit. People leave naturally that want to go. Other people come in. The one thing I will say is that as you listen to all the lads that are playing in our first team squad at the moment, they're all as happy as they can be by the sounds of it. There's not too many of them that are unhappy, so I'm not sure why many of them would leave unless somebody comes in with a pretty decent offer to take somebody off of our hands. I'm not sure that anybody will leave.
But don't you think it's a dangerous situation now to go and leave? Because if any clubs do go out of business, which is highly likely with the lower leagues, there's going to be a plethora of football players needing jobs.
Yeah, I think the one thing about it all, Eamonn, as we know, is a bit of a mess at the moment because of what's going on. It's going to take a little bit of working out. But having said that, Mr. Kavanagh's sitting around. I'm sure there's plenty of time to be thinking of solutions to these problems.
Well, that's all from us again this week, and we hope you join us from 8 p.m. next Friday. In the meantime, we must not forget those who have lost their lives during the pandemic. Our thoughts go out to their families, friends and those that may have cared for them. In particular, we mention Lions fan Terry Coakley, aged 34, who was laid to rest on Monday, having lost his life to the virus on April the 2nd. To the people who are key workers, and in particular the NHS, we continue to be immensely grateful for the incredible work each and every one of you undertakes in these very challenging times. We recognise your bravery and commitment and thank you for taking care of us when we need it most. You continue to be our heroes. To all, stay safe and good night from me.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.